Born in 1928 in British India, Abdul was the child of a modest trading family. His early life was simple, but deeply shaped by his mother. She taught him to care for others with action, not just words. Every day, she would give him 2 coins, one for himself and one to give to someone in need. He was only 11 when she fell seriously ill. Paralysis and mental illness took over her body and mind. Abdul, still a boy, became her caretaker. He bathed her, fed her, talked to her when she could no longer speak. Years later, he would say, "She gave me purpose. She taught me that dignity is not a privilege of the rich." When the partition of India happened in 1947, millions were displaced. Chaos and violence swept the land. Abdul, now 19, left everything behind and migrated to Karachi, Pakistan, with his family. They arrived with almost nothing. He found a job at a wholesale cloth market. But something inside him kept whispering, "You were meant to serve, not sell." He watched as orphans begged for food, as bodies rotted unclaimed on the streets, as women cried for lost children. One day, at the railway station, he saw the child hydration. No one stopped, no one cared. That night he stayed awake thinking, how can I sleep while others die so easily? With a few hundred rupees and unmatched resolve, Abdul bought a beat-up van and turned it into an ambulance. He taught himself basic first aid, kept bandages in the glove box, and drove night and day through the sprawling streets of Karachi. He lifted bodies others wouldn't touch, picked up addicts, sex workers, and mentally ill, the forgotten of society. One rainy night, he stopped for a man, severely injured. The man groaned in pain and reeked of alcohol. As Edhi tended to him, a bystander said, "Leave him, he's drunk." Edhi replied, "He's a human." That man later recovered and became a long-term volunteer. Often in life, we underestimate the ripple effects one kind act can provide. In 1951, Abdul founded the Edhi Trust. He had no office, just a bench, a notebook, and a cardboard donation box. People mocked him. Some called him mad. But slowly, the tide turned. The poor gave pennies, the middle class gave clothes, the wealthy began to notice. A young boy once donated his only toy. He said, "Please, give it to another kid who doesn't have one." Edhi cried quietly and kept the toy on his desk as a reminder of generosity. The trust grew, and so did the people's faith in him. In 1965, Edhi met Boquiz, a nurse at one of his smaller dispensaries. She was a firm, practical, and deeply compassionate woman, the perfect complement to his stubborn simplicity. They married quietly and shared a vow to serve humanity. Together, they created a powerful partnership running orphanages, shelter for women, and rehabilitation clinics across Pakistan. One fateful evening, his wife found a newborn baby abandoned in a trash heap. She brought her home, named her, and raised her as their own. They will repeat this story hundreds of times. In a society that punished women for bearing children out of wedlock, many infants were exed or left to their own devices. Edhi installed metal crates outside every Edhi center. Above them, a simple sign, "Do not X your baby, leave it here." Thousands of lives were saved, and no one was ever turned away. One night, a woman rang the bell and disappeared into the darkness. Inside the cradle was a baby wrapped in a shawl. 20 years later, that baby returned not as a visitor, but as a doctor, volunteering at the same center. Edhi never took a salary. He wore the same gray kurta for decades. He owned 2 sets of clothes, lived in a windowless room next to his clinic, slept on a hard floor beside the dying. He washed corpses, cleaned toilets, and never allowed status to taint service. Not everyone supported Edhi's work. He was criticized for helping Hindus, Christians, drug addicts, sex workers. He received death threats. Bombs exploded near his clinics, but he never stopped. He said, "My religion is humanitarianism, which is the basis of every religion in the world." The stories of his heroic acts are countless. He was honored by presidents, recognized by international bodies, and nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. But fame didn't change him. He kept his sandals, kept his man, kept his humility. He often said, "People have become educated, but they have not become human." On July 8th, 2016, Abdul Edhi passed away. He had donated everything. Pakistan wept. It was the largest state funeral in the nation's history. But his legacy lives on. Over 1,800 ambulances, countless orphanages, women's shelters, clinics, rehab centers. We live in a world desperate for heroes. But Edhi didn't wear a cape. He wore humanity. He taught us that service isn't a job. It's a way of life. And sometimes the poorest man can have the richest soul. If this story moved you, don't just share it, live it. And remember, you are limitless.